guys, here we go. You can see the essential question here is how do you solve quadratic equations? Oh, look at the little 2 up there. That's right. Remember, any equation that has a squared, the highest power is a 2, a squared, quadratic. That is a quadratic equation. Now, we've already talked with this particular foldable, we've already talked about one of these. You see it's actually behind the nice little, goofy little, blurry, whatever. It's going to be on blurry right now. Ready? Go! So you can see factor and then ZPP. We've already done that. We've already taken a quiz on that. We've already been assessed on that. But you can put that there, and I'm going to have you do this example over here in the top right. Do it yourself. That's cool. I'm going to show you the steps real quick. But it is one of the methods that we know and we're very good at, and you're getting better at and mastering, and I love it, solving quadratic equations. So you notice this one up here on the top right. Remember, first step was to make sure it was in standard form. So we put that bad boy in standard form. Beautiful. I subtract 72, it gives me this. Next thing, remember, was to look for a GCF if there was any. There's not in this one. So then we go through our work step. And that is finding the paired factors of negative 72, a times c. That's going to multiply to give you that, but add to give you negative 14. It's negative 18 and 4. I broke those up then into negative 18x, 4x. I factored out the GCF. I got it down here. So this is the factored form that you guys you're awesome at. You guys are mastered. It's great. So this is factor. Now, if it said factor, great. We'd be done. But it says solve. So I now have to use the ZPP, and I have to set these two things equal to 0, and I get x equals 18. Or x equals negative 4. So you guys are awesome at that. That's the actual factor in ZPP. Oh, side note. My goodness. Listen, I didn't say it, although it should go without saying. If you have not written this example down yet, what are you doing? Write it down. Yes, I know it's one that you're like, I got it. But you need to have some notes here. So in the factor ZPP, well, you don't just have to have notes just to have notes. I want you to have them so you can compare the different methods. That's why. It's for your benefit. I'm not just doing it so you just write it. Anyways, so factor and ZPP, in that part of the foldable, flip up this stuff here, and then that example right there, yes, you can pause the video now and copy it all down. But what I'm going to do now, is show you this middle flap right here is going to be another method to be able to solve the same exact quadratic equation. Now, here's the scoop. I would always do this particular specific question the way that we did it here. I do factor in ZPP. But here's the thing. Guys, sometimes, notice the key word here, sometimes you might not actually be able to factor it. Oh boy. Yeah. All the ones that we've done so far, you've been able to factor and then do ZPP. Or some where you can't factor. I got you. But if you can't factor these things, then this method will not work. This method right here will not work. Because you got to be able to factor to do ZPP. So there's got to be another method. Well, guess what? There is. And that's the next part of the foldable. So you're going to see on this foldable, the middle flap, that's right. It's called the quadratic formula. Oh, baby! The quadratic formula. Now, with this quadratic formula, it's a very famous thing. I mean, everybody, you talk to anybody that's ever had Algebra 1, Algebra 2, my goodness, you might even remember from Algebra 1. I know you briefly talked about it, but you can see up there now, bam, it finally popped up. At the quadratic formula over here to the right. Yes, it looks crazy, but here's what it is. First of all, I put this in a blue box for a reason, because the quadratic formula only really works after you put the quadratic equation in standard form. Oh, that's exactly what we talked about with factor and ZPP. That's right. That's going to be step number 1. Put it in standard form. Regardless, once it's in standard form, this is what you do. It's just this big old formula, hence it says formula, formula rare, which is big old formula that we're going to put the A in there, the B in there, and the C in there. It is x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. There is a song that goes with it. There's many, but here's one that I've heard. X is equal to negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Yeah, don't judge my singing. Whatever, it is what it is. So, however you need to remember it, you need to memorize it. That baby right there is your quadratic formula. And what I'm going to show you is how we can use this quadratic formula to do the same exact question right here and get 18 and negative 4. That's right. So here we go. So here you go. And I'm going to have steps for you. I got 5 steps that you need to make sure that you write down when we do this example here using the quadratic formula. Again, you already know the answers are 12 or -6. But here we go. You can see over here with the quadratic formula, all the stuff that's written in black, I color-coded it for a reason. That stuff never changes. It stays exactly the same every time. The only thing that changes is the A, the B, and the C. And again, the A, the B, and the C come from the standard form once you write it in that particular format. Okay? So that really, I guess if you will, is step number 1. Make sure it's in standard form. Oh, look, my example is not in standard form. So let's put it in standard form. Just like I did before, subtract 72. Subtract 72, so that would give me x squared minus 14x minus 72 equals 0. So I now have it in standard form. So that is check step number 1. Did it. Here is step number 2 with using the quadratic formula. You now need to identify and label what the A, the B, and the actual C are. So the A is always going to be, again, the coefficient in front of the square term. That's a 1. The actual B is always the actual coefficient in front of the just x term. So the B in this example happens to be a -14. And then the C, I'll write it in green. I'm going to be consistent with my letters or my colors. So the C happens to be the constant term, and it's -72. And yes, I've identified them, and I've written them down. You need to do the same thing, because now all we're going to do is step number 3. We're going to substitute the A, the B, and the C into the blue B, red A, green C. And all the black stuff is going to stay exactly the same. So here we go. Now, forgive me, but the actual black stuff, I'm going to have to make white. Because, you know what? Yeah, I'll do that. I can't do it any other way. So I'm going to make it white. So I'm going to go x is equal to negative plus or minus. I'm going to write all that for now. I wouldn't normally do this, but I'm just doing it for the dramatic effect. Whatever the actual thing is, I'm going to square that. And then it's going to be -4. That's all the stuff that's written up there in black, but I'm writing it in white because, again, I have a black background. And then 2 times whatever A is. So here we go. So let's take the A, which is 1, and substitute it in where I need to. So it's going to be 4 times 1, and down here 2 times 1. Let me put the B in where it goes. So -14 goes right here. So the -14 goes in for B. Notice what I'm doing. It's actually -14. That's right. You're looking at it correctly. It's a negative, because it's negative B, -14. So it's actually saying the opposite of whatever B is. Yeah, that's right. And then this B right here is -14. Notice it's in parentheses. You need to do the same thing. Make sure you put that in parentheses. And that's all the B's. Now I just got to put the green little C, which is -72. I got to put that right over here. -72. So here we go. We did it. We got step 1 done. We got step 2, which is identify and label these guys. So check that one. That was step number 2. And then step number 3, I substituted all of them in there. So now okay, I'll just do check number 3. So here we go, step number 4. Now we need to do the work. Now we need to actually use our order of operations, aka PEMDAS, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, and simplify everything that we can. Now here is the kicker. All of this stuff underneath the square root is where we actually have to kind of put our attention to, because the -14 is a simple thing. 2 times 1 is very simple. We have to kind of put our concentration here on this. So let me pull this down a little bit. Here's a scoop. Okay. I'm going to take this and I'm going to simplify this goofy thing right here by using my order of operations. That means I need to do what's in parentheses first. There's nothing in parentheses here. Okay? Actually, let me just rewrite this. I'm going to focus this here. So I don't remember. I'm going to just do all the stuff underneath this square root. I'm going to do all that. Beep. Right over here. So let me rewrite this all. Oh boy, here we go. So I'm going to do this whole thing squared -4, and then in blue -14, and then in red 1, and then in green -72. Okay. So I'm taking all that stuff that's in the actual yellow box, the stuff underneath the square root. That has a special name, by the way. We'll talk about that later. So I'm going to use my order of operations. That means I have to do what's in parentheses first. Not there. Next thing's exponents. So I do negative 14 squared. I have a calculator here. I'll show you. So negative 14, doesn't matter, it's negative because it's going to be positive. So 14. Negative 14 times negative 14 gives me 196. So this right here goes to 196. Okay? And now here's how I do this. I take this and just say, okay, let me put the negative right here, and let me now just focus on this stuff over here and multiply it all. So that thing right there will be 4 times 1 times negative 72. 4 times 1, which is just 4, times negative 72, which will give me 288, which is a negative 288. I'm just not doing the negative. I can do that in my head. You can too. So it's negative, this whole thing here goes to negative 288. So now I can take this. I don't have any more exponents. I got no more multiplication. I got no more division. I can just simply add. So 196 subtract this is the same as 196 plus 288. And 196 plus 288 plus 196 gives me 484. So this whole thing right here goes to 484. So that's the number that goes in the actual yellow box underneath the square root. So now I'll continue this entire thing over here on the left. I told you it's a little bit of work. I love it though. So I get x equals negative 14 is the same as just 14. Plus or minus the square root of what I just found right here, 484. And then all the rest of this stuff is all over, all of it. Make sure that that thing goes the whole way over or under everything on top. It's 2 times 1, which is just a 2. Beautiful. Okay, so now what do? Well, I have to take, what's next? The square root of 484. So that's going to give me 14 plus or minus whatever the square root of 484 is. So 44 square rooted, is 22, okay. So that means this thing right here, it's a perfect square. It's a big perfect square, but it is. It gives me 22. All of that over 2. Oh, baby, we're getting our answer. So here is the scoop. Step number 5, you need to write your answer as 2 different values of x. You're going to say, where does that come from? Ladies and gentlemen, right here, the plus or minus. Because here's what it's telling you. This whole thing is saying, hey, I'll give you one scenario, I'll put it in green. I'll put it in light green. So x is 14 plus 22 over 2. Or the other scenario is this. I'll put it in purple. X is 14 minus 22, all of that over 2. That's where the plus or minus comes into play. You just make it 14 plus 22 over 2, or 14 minus 22 over 2. And then you just simplify this bad boy. You don't keep it like that. You would simplify it. What does that mean? You would add 14 and 22 and get 36. Divide that by 2. I believe that's what you get. Yup. You divide that by 2 and you get 18. That's lovely. Okay. And then that's one of them. Or the other scenario is 14 minus 22. 14 minus 22 gives me negative 8, I believe. Negative 8 divided by 2. And that would give me negative 4. So there are my 2 possible solutions to this entire, I guess, it's quadratic equation. How awesome is that? Now go back and look at the very first example we did in the factor in ZPP part of the foldable. That's right, you got 18 or negative 4. How awesome is that? I just showed you another way to do that same exact question. Now this is going to seem like a fair amount of work to do what we did with the factor in ZPP. And I'm going to tell you, I agree. But here's the thing. Sometimes, like I said before, you are not going to be able to factor the quadratic equation that's given to you. And the only method I'm telling you right now that you're going to guarantee be able to use would be the quadratic formula. There's no other method to use. That would be the only method. So you have to know how to do this, and you have to meticulously go through this stuff.